My name's Michael Farren. I was born in Grimmerweir, just up the road from Greencastle, just it was all around the one area. I actually been the sea, has been my life. When I was a small boy, I used to go down to the rocks along the Foyle and fish crabs. We done that. We used to have friends came out of Dublin and we all got together and we would go down on the school holidays. We would be there till 11 o'clock at night, just on the shore all the time. And that was someone we never really lost that. That was part of our life. And that's how I came on the fishing. We used to come down and help the older fishermen, it was fishing salmon in the summertime, we'd give them a hand to take their nets out and clean them and spread them, and we would get a few shillings, every week for doing that, and which at that time, money was scarce, like so. Every penny counted, you know. That was some great people, then at that time. Some of them was cross if you didn't do what they would say if the net wasn't done right, and they went to put it out and it got fouled up, they would blame you. You would get a doing the next day and you'd have to do it right, So no, I was only about that. We would at that time like 10 and 12. That would be your time you'd be fishing actually whenever you'd be 14. You'd be out on the boats fishing salmon, you'd have to You'd usually younger boys that was their work, but then you'd put the water in for them. One of them big crockery jars, and you'd fill that, would take it to the well. They were always spring wells, so they loved that kind of water. And you'd fill the jar for them. Well, that would have been towards the end, about 55. From 55 onwards, I wouldn't be talking. And I would have been doing that up to for 5 years anyway, up to about just going out to fish salmon. I love fishing salmon. Like it, when I got a bit older, then we moved on to fishing salmon. Any night, maybe some boys wouldn't turn up to go out. They would always call on some of the younger boys to go. And that's the way you always stood about the pier, waiting to see if you could get a berth. And there was a name on it, but I just can't remember the name now. It was a pier header or something like that. That was money at the end of the day. Any money you got, like it helped your mum keep going. My dad, he would have been a fisherman as well. He fished in the summertime, fished in whatever he could. The kind of boats wasn't really suitable for the winter, but fished lines and stuff like that, and we fished salmon, and every crew member would get a salmon to take home, maybe 2 or 3 times in the season, which everybody loved that time. That was a kind of a novelty actually because things weren't that great. There come a job up then, and from the fishing I moved to go to sea. My brother was away at sea and a couple of other boys from around here, so there came this job up for an ordinary seaman and these homes, so that's how I come to be away at sea. Well, it was mainly coal boats, taking coal from like a Liverpool to Derry, or going from Northumberland, up around the north of Scotland and to Derry, down coasters, and then we used to take coal over to Belgium, and we would have to wash the holes out after coal. and then go to Rotterdam and load grain, which was no easy job. Imagine a load of coal and then having to put grain in there then. And they used to come and inspect the hole, with white gloves, and if we got any coal, they would turn it down. You'd have to redo the hole again. Oh, but I liked it. It was a job, like, and I spent 8 years at sea, like, but that wasn't really moved to better ships as time went on. They used to run up to Norway, and we used to go to the north tip of Norway, which is up to get paper pulp, for making newsprint. And you would go from there down to the South Italy, which was about 14 days. And really the ships, they were big enough, like they were 2,000 ton or whatever, but they didn't have enough capacity, to hold water. So in the last 5 days, when you were headed, down, the skipper wouldn't, to save money and stuff, they wouldn't want to Gibraltar them to get more fresh water. We'd be in water rations for 5 days, maybe, till you'd get. You weren't allowed to take a shower or nothing like that, That's. But I did love going to sea, like, I still think it was a great job, and, the skippers all loved men from around here because they were good. They were there on the water, 8 years of that, which I loved. And up to I got married, actually, in 1969. That's far up I was there. So the local man here, Jim McLennan, he had, he got a new boat. He was getting a new boat, and he asked me, I did fish salmon with him, on the small boat when I was home. I always came back to fish salmon, even in the 8 years I was away at sea. I always made sure that unless for 1 year, I think it was the only year I didn't come back. But anyway, he said he was getting a new boat and if I would go with him, and I said I would, because I was getting married and went to sea, like it was, you were away most of it. It's not like now, you didn't get time. You didn't go 2 months away and a month at home. You were away for 6 months and, you had to sign a new deal then. But anyway, I went, that's why I went fishing then. Jim got his boat then on the 5th of May 1970. The foil fisher, they called her. So I was fishing, as I have photographs there to show you of it. Like, well, we fished the salmon as well, because she was only 52 foot, like, but she was a big improvement for what we normally fished in. We trawled for whitefish as well. Went over to Scotland and all. Like, we went quite a distance. We went down the Irish Sea as well to fish prawns. We have a photograph there of the prawns. Like, and we moved around. Actually, we moved around. We were down in Dunmorris to fish herring down there on it as well, which is quite small for that. It's just too small, like, for carrying herring. But we tried it, right? But we done all right on her, Well, at the start there was 4, which is quite true at that time, Now 2 maybe in them, but we all the boys that was with me, they're all still living yet, but they're all quite Brenton Gill, Michael Kavanagh, and Patsy Cannon, unless for one on the other boys are still fishing yet.
Well, they're still fishing?
Aye, Michael, he's having Brenton has the 2 super trawlers there, the Brent Helen and the Valley McKee. Aye, he would fish out of Kelly Bays all the time. But that's where he started off fishing, like with us as well. You know. They moved on from that. So Jim then, we went to Meva then one time. Jim was negotiating to buy, to get another boat built. This Point Fisher was brand new. So they decided we would move on to the herring. He always had it in his mind that he would go fishing herring in Kelly Bays. So he decided to go for a bigger boat, 65-footer, which took another year or more to build. You know, when you order them, it takes quite a while before you get it. But they did get it. But in between times, we took that 50-footer down to Neva Boatyard and Downings to survey it, to sell it, you see, because, and when we were in the boatyard, we were pulling it up the slip. And we had it up halfway, and we washed in underneath it, scrubbed it and all. It was quite big, when you ran under them, they're big boats. The cradle half parted in the middle, and the boat went down the slip again. And, I don't know how we managed it. Nobody was killed in it, but we were in under it. But we got out in a way, and she went away down on her side, and the insurance company wrote that boat off then. It's still fishing yet, as far as I know. Like, it's over in Scotland, it's still fishing. But it's amazing. My brother was with us, James. He was with us at that time then, so he was lucky enough. Like, he was pushed away in a wee boat, so there was nobody killed. So we moved on then to, as I say, that boat was wrote off then, and we had to wait 6 months then to get the other one, the 65-footer. We fished herring. We went to Kelly Bays and that. And we done a couple of years of very good fishing and that, like catching herring down at Belmullet. And all that whole west coast there, right down to Galway, up to Galway and to around there. We landed stuff there, and we took stuff from Broadhaven up to Kelly Bays. They sold them at that time in crans. 4 baskets to the cran, and they were auctioned up in the co-op shed, But sometimes they were a good price at that time. Not for now, See, there are restrictions now on what you can take in. You're not allowed to take in. You can only, them big boats would take in as much herring in one half day as they're allowed to take in for the full year. So, it's different altogether. At that time, every boat was, times you'd do a week and you would get none. And then the next time you could go out, the 2 boats could be loaded, At that time, the herring was a kind of, we're still catching herring, but you were allowed to catch herring, but mackerel came onto the scene then. There was more mackerel, and we started off like it, we would fish mackerel, we fished that all winter, and then I moved to a smaller boat then in the summer and went back to him in the winter. That's the way, I still came back to fish salmon because I loved doing it. I had a small boat, a small half-decker, and I used to move onto that, and Jim always got somebody else. I was a kind of an engineer on it, for the big boat. Looked after the engine, Well, I was with Jim there, I was 13 years with him down in Kelly Beach. We fished mostly in Kelly Beach, like, and that would have been mainly herring back here. It's good. Then fish salmon in the summertime, we loved that. Like, I kind of split that job up, Go back then in September and fish with him then up to March or April or whatever. You done all the bad weather, like winter time down. In 1983, I got my own boat then. I got my own small boat called the Gemma. She was 38 foot. So was on my own then. We done trawling here, salmon in the summer, trawling for place, general whitefish, whatever. I done that then from 1982 up to I just retired, sold the boat then, retired, like, for that length of time, but I love fishing, and that was kind of what I done. I remember one night going up to watch, we when we were away at sea, we used to, you had to do a watch, like you had 5 hours on, 5 off, 5 on, 5 off, and then there was a 4 hours, you got a 4 hours, somebody, you done four every 24 hours or whatever it was, but at that time there was no automatic steering. You had to stand behind this big wheel and steer by the compass, The mate or the captain would call out whatever course, mostly by compass, and whenever I started they would want they wouldn't call out degrees on the compass, they would call out the cardinal points, north by north, north to north, a half north, and stuff like that. Yeah, that's the way you had to go to this wee shitty thing. It was in the middle of a compass. And there was one time, like I had a while out at that time of hustling, whenever I went away, you get used to something. And I was there, it's good night and all. And I just kept, I was hustling, and the next time the mate turned around, stop that bloody hustling. You know what I mean? They reckon it's very, very unlucky to hustle in a boat. They think it's supposed to take a storm on. I didn't know about it, but when you're a young fella, you don't think it's good enough life, but it's not for everyone either. It's very, there are times you could, when you're out there and the weather's bad and you think to yourself, I don't like this business at all. And then when the weather finds off, you keep losing away that feeling you had. You wouldn't want to do anything. But you see, I was born the year the war ended. But the only thing I remember, they kept the forces going a good few years after, at 8 or 9 years, well, after the war was over, to make sure it didn't flare up again, or whatever. I just lived up along the foil there, just up at Downaway. It was actually it's only about 2 minutes walk from the beach. But we used to go down through the fields and down onto the beach, But they used to come destroyers and, a lot of destroyers, and they would refuel up in the bay. The tankers would refuel them up there. And they would come on for a kind of a break. They would lie at anchor and move on them. At times there would be maybe about 10, 15 destroyers and maybe an aircraft carrier. Small aircraft carrier used to come on as well. But they used to come up by here and they used to put their band out and they would be playing. The band, they had bands and all on them. They would be playing while they would be going up there slow. the anchor up there. You know, they were good. There were some of them allowed ashore, but the not so much the British now. The Canadians and Americans, they came in. They were allowed ashore. All right, they were. But what I can remember, I was quite small at the time, but I do remember my parents would be would have remembered a lot more about it. Whenever they came in, we were quite small at the time, and we used to go along the beach. As I was saying earlier, telling one of the girls that we would, after a storm, or not a storm, but even a gale, an ordinary gale, a lot of the sailors would have to, would be all standing on, they had to do exercises and stuff like that. Some of their hats would blow off, and we would get them along the shore, and we would put the hat on, and the name of the ship would be on. The name of the ship would still be on. Remember, it was around the year on the ship. Everybody had a sailor's hat with black with a white top on it. You see where Carrick-a-Rory Pier is? The pier, the upper pier. Out there was about 10 boys anchored, 4 submarines, and they would have hooked onto the sub. They would have came in, because they don't have an anchor, you see. They would have tied to them up there. So, I do remember a couple of times now, I'm not sure just about this, but one of the sailors jumping onto the buoy to tie the rope went off the buoy and was drowned. I think his body might have been got along the shore here or something. With that, someone that I would have been quite young at the time, when that was happening. But I do remember it, and I remember the planes as well. There's a plane out there actually lying in the bottom out there, which came in and crashed. But I remember as a young boy, just out from our house, they came on one. I'm not sure now whether it was probably a British one. Came on and he was heading for Eglinton, which was their base for. But whatever happened, they couldn't get there. So she came down like that there and had the sandbag just stuck up in the air like that. He was trying to crash land on the water actually, but couldn't get it straightened up, or what I can remember of it anyway. But I think there were a couple of men killed in it. My sister was older than me, and she was quite upset. When we saw, we were watching, you could hear the roar, we knew there was something wrong with the plane. But it stuck straight, the wing went straight into the sand, and it submerged as well, eventually. They came out of the area then and they towed it away.